So anyways, sorry about that, I got interrupted. We're going to talk a bit today about building a computer for Linux, and what it is, I'm trying to think now. I was on a fucking roll and then somebody came in and I had to restart everything. Because God forbid I have to edit this video. So we're talking a bit about how Libre is your software and what can you do to make your computer more Libre. Because I tried to install something called GNU Guix today, and Guix is a fucking pain in the ass. I'm not gonna lie, it's slow as dirt. The installer takes fucking forever, and it does not support non-free firmware, which means if your computer isn't fucking FSF approved, you're not fucking installing it. Now there is a package called, or sorry, there's an installer called Non-Geeks, and what that is it's supposed to have non-free firmware. Now for me, it did not, even though I had a 6900 XT and I read that Non-Geeks is supposed to have that, but for some reason it still warned me in the installer and it just didn't work. So I'll read up on that later, what I might have needed to do differently in order to install non-free firmware, but I'm going to give up on that for right now because Geeks isn't something that really interests me. I only really looked into it because I was reading up about NixOS and I wanted to try it because people keep saying, oh, you got to try NixOS, but it ships with systemd. And there's kind of a conflict there. My computer doesn't really work well with systemd. So I was like, okay, I can't use that, but there is Geeks. And if I can get non-free firmware on Geeks, I could probably use that. But I can't because I have a 6900 XT, and that is non-Libre. So we're going to ask a bit today about this philosophy change you might need to have when installing Linux, and that is getting your computer to the point where you have mostly Libre hardware, you know what I mean? Or like at least plug and play hardware that is kernel blob drivers. Because if you're running a lot of bullshit, like this is the issue Linus Tech Tips ran into on Windows, or sorry, on when he tried Linux, was a lot of his hardware, a lot of his peripherals specifically were non-free, and because of that, he got fucked in the ass when he tried Linux on it. So I'm gonna give you a quick rundown of what I do for my hardware and what you might be thinking about. So systemd specifically has a bug with my USB DAC, and I have a shit Modius and Jotunheim stack. So what that does is it just plugs into USB and it fucking outputs sound. So it's my sound card basically. And with systemd, I get a screech in my speakers. It'll happen like once a day. It's really fucking annoying. But on non-systemd distributions, it's not a problem. So that was one reason I couldn't use NixOS, was because I don't want to damage my speakers, and systemd likes to break shit. So I also really hate the 5-minute reboots and being unable to start and stop services as I fucking well please. But enough about systemd. So what you're looking for though when you're switching over to Linux is, does your, especially peripherals, because hardware is pretty easy, the only thing I would say is like avoid all-in-one water coolers that have a lot of RGB and bullshit on them, and the pump is controlled through Windows. You gotta get something that's BIOS controlled. So I have an air cooler. I have a Noctua DH15, and it's fine. It works just about as well as most water coolers, and it doesn't have any RGB, so you don't have to fucking worry about that. And that's another thing I'd say, cut out the RGB in your computer, because you can use OpenRGB, but it's really fucking complicated and it's just annoying to use. You gotta know like way too much about the hardware you're buying. It's easier just to not get RGB, especially because RGB fans tend to fail a lot quicker than a non-RGB fan. Specifically, the RGB in them fails. So what you want to do is get a fucking normal case fan, especially when we're talking about one benefit you're going to get from this, from getting Linux specific hardware, is you can get much higher quality hardware. Whereas if you're buying something like a Corsair case fan, not only is your RGB going to fail in 2 years, but the fan may fail in three. And what's going to happen? Oh shit! I hope that recording. And what's going to happen though is, let me go to power settings. Holy shit! I forgot about that about XFCE. So XFCE has this thing where if I update my system, for some reason XFCE likes to reset all my fucking settings, so like my system sounds come back on and my screen starts to blank after 5 minutes, even though I have it set to stay off forever. So I have to do some fuckery about that. But basically, when you're using especially Corsair products, I can never recommend anything made by Corsair that they have ever made. Their mice are dog shit. Like, they fucking break in 6 months. Their RGB fans fail in like 6 months. Their keyboards are like the most half-ass built keyboards I've ever seen. No lubrication on the stabs, shitty ABS keycaps, non-standard bottom row. It's fucking garbage. Like, don't fucking buy it. Same thing with Razer. If you ever get a Razer product after like 2016, people always get fucking confused about this when I mention it, because they'll say, oh, I've had a Razer mouse from 2012 and it's lasted forever. I said, yeah, but in 2016, they fucking tanked their build quality. So now they produce all this garbage that you have to replace in 2 years. So for my keyboard, speaking of these two companies, because Corsair and Asus's RMA policy are something to fucking behold. That is why I can't recommend their products, is because if they break, you're up shit creek. And what's going to happen is you're going to send in a request. It's going to take them a few weeks to get back to you. It's going to take them months to get your fucking RMA through. And at the end of it, they're going to try to fuck you around at every turn. So please buy any other company other than these two. I swear to God. And, but what I have for my keyboard, though, is a Keychron V3. It does have onboard RGB on it, which looks like dog shit. I fucking hate it. And it especially doesn't look good with my keycaps. So I've had to not take apart the keyboard, but I've had to remove the keycaps once or twice to like clean it and stuff, just cause. And my E key, while I was typing, it just fucking broke one day. Like, the stem just disintegrated right off of it. So I sent Keychron an email. I said, hey, my E key disintegrated. Here's a picture of it. I need a replacement. And they said, okay, what's your order number and your serial number, and we'll get one out to you. So I've given them my, and that took like a day to get that email. So I sent them my serial number and my Amazon order number, and they supposedly have sent me a keycap, but it's probably coming from China, so I'm not expecting it to come in for a while. Now, for right now, though, I bought a $20 set of cheap-ass PBT keycaps on Amazon, which are fine. I got those fucking honeybee ones, Have you ever seen those with the Japanese lettering on them? I literally just looked up PBT keycaps and bought the cheapest set. I have no interest in Japanese. I don't even know if the letters are accurate, honestly. They probably aren't, but I don't really know. Unless they're like katakana or something. I don't know. But I can't read Japanese. I have no idea. And so anyways, I'm using a different keycap set right now, but once that E key comes, I'm just going to put it in a bag and keep those around for posterity, just in case I decide to resell this thing someday or whatever. But Keychron, their stabs come pre-lubed, so they actually feel good. They don't feel rattly. And the keycaps are, besides the E key disintegrating, they are decent quality PBT, basically. And they're always replaceable because they're fucking standardized. And that's something you want to look at, is standardize. Fucking standardize your shit. Do not get a lot of proprietary garbage, because software, you want to be free, right? You obviously want to be running free software as where you can, but how free is your hardware? And I'm gonna kind of run down. Back to RGB So I ended up getting what's called a Fractal Design Meshify C quote metal edition unquote. And literally all it is the Meshify C case, but with a metal panel instead of a tempered glass one, because I hate tempered glass. I don't want to see what's in my computer. My computer is stuffed next to a wall, So I can't see that side of the computer anyways unless I fucking move it to the opposite side of my desk. But I have subwoofers there, so I keep my computer way to the wall. And it's just a black box, that's all it is. Now, it does have a mesh front panel, so if I wanted to get RGB fans, I totally could, but I just decided to turn off all the RGB in my system. I would say avoid water coolers if you can, because a lot of the times they have controls on the operating system and not the BIOS. They aren't automatically controlled, whereas an air cooler, the fans are automatically controlled. And just don't get RGB ones, get like the Noctua DH15 or something, it's great. But I know that there's better options at that price point now, so get whatever feels best for you. Um, so I was talking about my DAC because not only do I not want to fuck around with sound or sorry with proprietary sound cards or anything, but I also have a USB DAC because my setup I have two subwoofers and they're connected through a RCA cable, and that goes my shit my shit Jotunheim has XLR outs and RCA outs that can be used at the same time. So when I switch on the speakers, it's I have KRK Rocket 8s, and those are hooked up by XLR, and the subwoofers are hooked up by RCA, and each one is a separate channel, because directional bass is actually a thing. Contrary to popular belief, you can actually get better sound with more than one sub, but that's beside the point. So and then I'm using. Now, the reason why Guix wouldn't work was because my Radeon 6900 XT does not have Libre drivers. So if you are hell-bent on having a fully Libre system, you will have to downgrade your graphics card a bit, because obviously NVIDIA is not going to work, and current-gen AMD cards aren't in the Libre drivers. And then I use for my microphone, I've actually got a PreSonus AudioBox USB 96, which I got for like $20 or something. I got it pre-owned without the microphone, and then I just got a Shure Beta 87, I think, as my microphone. I know that I tune my videos really quietly, and that's because I don't want any clipping. So if you ever hear a YouTuber that sounds like their voice keeps like screeching in your speakers, that's why I don't do that. That's why my videos are a lot quieter. So you may have to turn up your sound to hear me, but I did set a filter, noise suppression filter, it may distort my voice a bit, but for the most part it should work. So now you shouldn't hear white noise if you actually turn up my sound. And then I've got a some LG external Blu-ray player that I don't actually use for Blu-rays. Instead I use it as a CD player or DVD player. And you just plug it in and it works, my motherboard's a Gigabyte X470 Aorus, and I just got it because I got a Ryzen chip, and I wanted something that will work with that. And my Asus actually broke the day I got it because I tried to install the CPU, and I powered it on, and it does that initialization thing, and then it just bricked itself, so I returned it and got the Gigabyte, and everything worked fine. So, and I was glad too, because it had a backup BIOS, which that Asus board did not have, and that saved my ass a few times. So, and then what I'm using for my mouse, because I've got I've got four mice actually. My main one I use is a X-Keys L-Track, which is just a fingerball. It's really nice, high quality, got steel rollers and a big glowing red ball on it. It's super ergonomic. I can use it all day without my hand getting tired, and it's got a good scroll wheel. I have the MX Master 3S, but I don't really use it anymore because I was mostly using it as a wireless mouse for gaming, and because the battery lasted like 3 weeks. But I don't use it much anymore because the rubber starts getting kind of grimy after a while, and it's just gross. I do have a MX 575 thumb ball. And I don't really use that anymore ever since I got the X-Keys, but I may actually bring that on my trip in case I need a mouse I play like MMOs, so I don't really need a proper mouse, but I need some sort of input device that isn't a trackpad. So I may bring that with me. And I've got a Brother HLL 2300D because back then they were like $50 and they came with enough toner to last me forever. That has actually been kind of a thorn in my side because the drivers are available as a RPM or DEB package, but there is also a thing on the AUR as well as Void, Gentoo, and I believe Guix that is called BR Laser, which supports a lot of Brother printers. So I'm able to use that for now instead of using the official driver, which I can only really use on Debian, Ubuntu, or OpenSUSE, or like Fedora maybe, but that's all good. So that's kind of a quick rundown of my hardware. It's you want to make sure that the software you're running is. Oh yeah, and then I have a Xbox Series S, or sorry, Xbox Elite 2 controller, which just needs the Xbox DRV driver, and then I use it over Bluetooth using a gigabyte, whatever the gigabyte Bluetooth Wi-Fi card is. I use that, and that's also not available in Guix. So I got to figure out what the problem with non-Guix is, but when you're thinking about hardware in Linux, there's not too much concern anymore, but if you're using a lot of bullshit that needs special like software on Windows, like a Razer keyboard or a, even though the keyboard itself will work, but like you can't bind keys or anything, you can consider one with QMK, whatever it's called, VIA, instead of that, and then you can, edit it that way, like one of the, or whatever System 76's solution was, You can get a keyboard like that. You can get a plugin. Oh yeah, and then my other mice I have is a Zowie FK2, which I really need to replace because that's old as shit. And but it's got a good sensor on it, so I have that for like gaming or whatever. But and that's it for my mice really. That should be it for my hardware for the most part. Despite all this, I still use a Samsung phone because I use whatever my carrier gives me. And I've even got the Samsung watch to go along with it because my mom got me one. So, I don't know. But anyways, start thinking about what hardware you're buying and how much control you need in Linux rather than Windows, because that's going to be a pain in your ass, All right, that should be about it. Thanks.